So we're on Aldgate High Street, EC3, the border of the City of London and the East End. The pub behind me is a famous sight to many people. Now, you know it as the Hoop and Grapes, but to signify that it sold wine and ale, it was originally called the Hop and Grapes. This is a very important indicator if you was a traveller picking which public house you wish to stop in and seek your beverage. Now, people will go on and on and on about how what's most famous about this pub is the fact that it's one of the few remaining buildings, never mind pubs, to survive the Great Fire of London. Yes, that is incredibly fascinating. We're very lucky to have it, but that's not the only special feature of such a building. Now, let's look at just where we are, because Aldgate is actually named after one of the 7 Roman gates that led into what we call the City of London. To my right, your left, if we look this way, we have the East End. That's where you strike Whitechapel. And if you head the other way for me, turn all the way round, this is the beginning of the City of London. You're in a very unique spot here. You have the height of global finance, global wealth, with the height of English poverty just here, which makes it a very interesting site, be you here today or throughout the previous centuries. Now, the rumour is that the fire stopped in front of this pub by a mere 50 yards. We'll say roughly roundabout, where if you see that first bus there in front of the 15, there's an alleyway by an old pub called the Still and Star, which is still standing, but it's not been open for years. That's roughly towards that way, because that's towards where the fire would have been coming from, to here. That's roughly where it would have stopped. Now, before we carry on and speak about some other subjects, I will say that there are some devilish rumours behind the Great Fire. I could talk about the Great Fire all day. I've made multiple videos on this and intend to make more. One thing I will say, which is a bit controversial, is whether it's like the events that took place after the Paris Commune or after the Great Fire of Rome when Nero was burning Christians, there are many accusations that the fire was continuously being stoked to have got this far, because buildings were being demolished, great efforts were being made to stop it, but suspiciously the fire just wouldn't stop. So I won't stand here and say that that's definitely what was happening, but there's plenty of bits of evidence that would suggest that it was. Now, I'll also take a moment to point out how beautiful this building is for being what we call utterly pissed. It's bent, isn't it? It's off. And I think that's absolutely fantastic, because it reminds us of the timber framing. So this building isn't just special because it survived the Great Fire. Too many of us look at pubs and think, oh, the billboard says this, let's sit here and think about that great event. Well, no, think of how many things this pub saw. Just like all of the pubs like it, we're too quick to sort of read Google or read the plaques that sit on the side and just summarise the pub as those particular parts of history, when in fact this pub and its crooked walls would have seen more than we can imagine, certainly far more than the few boards allude to. Now, if we look at this lovely fireplace, immediately we see the 1600s look, that Tudor-esque vibe that very few properties have. You've got to go to places like Shrewsbury, Midlands, to really experience wonderful architecture like this. If we was to compare Tudor architecture with ancient Athenian architecture, you'd think it looked a bit lopsided and awful. But what we're really taking out of this is the character and the building ability that was available to people at a time when they was very congested and rushed. Now this, for me, if I was wealthy, I would love to have something like this in my home. And you can see they've done a really good job on all the furniture here. See the way they've got the unique leather-bound seats. I absolutely love that. Now turn around for me. Now, we can't avoid catching the wandering Englishman lazily sat doing nothing whilst we're doing all the work. So come over here. Now, a set of 13th century tunnels used by smugglers were said to lead under the Hoop and Grapes, would have been the Hop and Grapes, to the Tower of London at the Thames. So we're led to believe that a tunnel, which we were shown by the charming chap behind the bar, led all the way to the tower. Now, this would have been probably before this pub was around. If it was brought in when the pub was created, it would have been probably to help get the goods down here without being robbed. Thank this man for showing us the tunnels downstairs. Thank you very much. Legend. Make sure you come in and give him a tip. All right, thank you. So come with me over here. This is really interesting. Over the years, this building has tilted sideways by 18 inches. I'm not sure who it is that's measuring that, but I'm glad they did. I absolutely love as well, the view from the inside is equally as wholesome to me as that of the outside. And just before we close up, come with me, walk around here. The pub has gone well out of its way to give us unique images of its past and the fire. Now, most images you will find online. I'm very familiar with loads of images, but what I love about special pubs like this, or when we was in Limehouse, is you'll find specific paintings or illustrations that I haven't found anywhere, which means they actually are exclusive. Over here. And here, obviously, mentioning the gates. There were more than 7 gates, but the 7 gates were the main gates, and that's why you'll see some illustrations that will be, sometimes some will say there was 8, some will say there was 10, but the main gates there was 7. And it alludes here, Aldgate was the easternmost gateway. Obviously it's attached to what we now know as the East End, through the London Wall leading from the City of London to Whitechapel. The gate was removed in 1761. Most of the gates were removed. There's a couple that you can still see. Well, all the gates were removed, really.
At the Tower Bridge, and they would smuggle it underneath these tunnels.
Although legitimately as well, I imagine. Because you're buying the alcohol, and then it would be the legitimate way to get
that's it. I can't. Yeah, that's the only thing I can think of. Yeah, it has to be. Surely it has to be.
You're saying that what took place?
Well, legitimately, you could take the alcohol from the docks and you bring it this way. But maybe there's even a railway. I don't know.
Yeah. Oh, it will have also been because to avoid piracy and things like that and theft. So if you have a good deal with a successful place like this, then it's within your interest to have a direct route where you're not going to get mugged.
I'm going to use that line for
it would be. So this one, it's an entire tunnel then. It goes all the way to the men's, which is this is the.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, only thing through here, I wouldn't want to take a lot of people through here. The cellar goes all the way back.
Oh, okay.
There is.
How far does it go?
Really, really far. It goes. Do you know outside with the where the barrels are outside?
Right.
So obviously, that's where we get the keg deliveries. It goes shoot all the way through. It is. There's one thing at the back. So they said that there used to be a well.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's known. Do you know?
Yeah. A lot of people died because of that well. Yeah.
Do you know a lot about? Do you know a lot about this story about that at all?
Yeah, when they couldn't figure it out, and then they had to sort the well out. You mean the well just up the road there?
Yeah, sure. The original hook is still in our cellar.
Is it really?
Yeah. That original hook is still in our cellar.
I'm not familiar with this. What's this?
I can only take one person. It's only because of health and
safety.
Right.
You get out of the way, boys.
Is that
Yes.
Is that right?
Let's go. Let's go. Let's go.
That is all been boarded up now. And then that's the.
Wow. And that's the original from the fountain. Now, many people died from waterborne diseases because of that fountain, basically, and it's famous for it. It's still sitting there on the corner. It's obviously not usable anymore, but that's why this is one of the most famous fountains. So I'm going to touch this just because so few people would have been able to. Oh, wow. This just highlights what I say, that whenever you look at a pub, You never judge the history on the face of it or what the internet says, because it's seen so many centuries of madness. You never know what, and you can see the tunnel's shape so distinctly, can't you?
Absolutely.
You've really spoiled me here. You've really spoiled me here. Nice to see so many kegs sticking over as well. That's the brain, ladies and gents.